Okay, just going to run through something briefly. When working with accessories in a game, so if it's different saddles or hair or whatever it is, there are a couple of ways of doing it. Now the easy way is just embedding that accessory within your original model, and you can just toggle those on and off within Unity. The only problem with that is it's not a very optimized workflow. It puts strain on your game's performance, essentially because it's loading everything into the game every time you load that main asset. Even though you're not displaying it, it appears that it puts strain on the game's performance because you're embedding it all within that one model. Okay, so another way of doing it is to keep it separate. So obviously if you only got a few accessories, I think embedding it's okay. We've done that in the past. It's not a train smash. But once you start dealing with, larger amounts of accessories, that's not the way to go. It's not a very efficient workflow. So what you do is you can have the accessory in its own FBX file. The only thing you need to do then is make a duplicate of the rig that you're using. That way you can skin this new mesh to that rig. Let's just grab that bone there. Alright, so you need the skeleton in there so you can actually skin it to that skeleton, and then when the animation files animate, then this new mesh will animate with it. So you can feed the same animation file that you're feeding to the original asset, you can feed it to this accessory, and they'll all animate because it's using the same rig and they're all set up the same way. You just so the only thing you have to really duplicate, like I said, is just the rig. Make sure it's embedded within your accessory. It does unfortunately get a little bit more complicated because as soon as you don't have your accessory embedded within your original asset, so let's just say this hair accessory is not embedded within the original horse asset, because we've got so many, we're keeping it separate. When you're working with separate models that are receiving the same animation file, there's a slight delay. Even though it's sending the same animation file to the models, the one, like let's say the horse will if it's galloping, it's going to outrun the mane and tail because there's a slight delay. The mane and tail will animate, but slightly after the horse animates, or vice versa. So how does one eliminate that delay in Unity? Because we want to keep the assets separate from the model because we've got, say, 30 different hairstyles. We don't want to embed them all within the original asset because it'll bloat it and affect our game's performance. So that we basically in Unity then have to retarget and tell Unity that this asset's bones, the same naming of these bones, are going to mimic the original asset's bones. So instead of sending the animation to both, we're basically retargeting these bones to the original bones. And that way we manage to remove the delay. Okay, so you need the rig within the accessory, not only to be able to skin the accessory to that rig, not only for that rig to receive the animation, but essentially, very importantly, it's not actually even receiving the animation in hindsight because we're retargeting this bone to the same bone in the original horse. And the original horse is the one that's receiving the animation, but the logic is the same. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. So that's how you can separate your accessories, still have them rigged and skinned, and you by duplicating the original rig just within that accessory, but then within Unity you just need to retarget this accessory's bones to mimic that of the original asset and not to send the animation to both. Okay, so I hope that helps. Now a second thing comes into play. If your original hierarchy of your asset has the skeleton on its own, which we have done for previous games, that's fine. That's totally fine because now your skeleton is, let's just say, I'm going to just drag it out here. It's separate. It's completely separate. It's not nested under something. It's actually far easier. But I have received the request from developers in the past where we've been asked to nest the rig underneath the original assets mesh. So that's what we're seeing in this case. That horse main was the original horse, and the root node, well, CG, this pelvis is the root node, but it's nested under CG. Pelvis is nested under CG, and CG is nested under the original horse mesh. Now we don't want to duplicate the horse mesh every time, because essentially we're running into the same problem where we're loading models that and high try count models when we don't actually need them. So the solution that was suggested to me, which I tried, was, okay, let's just take this out of that, from the horse, take it out from underneath the horse, and just group it. Okay, and then, okay, we don't want to put it off the camera, there we go. And then we just call it the same thing, oopsie, call it the same thing as what the original horse was called, original horse mesh. Okay, and now we've got our hierarchy again. Now we've got the pelvis underneath CG and CG underneath horse main. But Unity's a little bit too smart for its own good, and what happens, it gets a strange glitch. It notices that it's under a group now, not a mesh, and it offsets the mesh. It's a strange offset that happens when we try to trick it. So another solution, let's go back. Okay, so now we've got the original hierarchy the way it was. What we've done is we've actually kept the horse in the scene. So the horse is the top of the hierarchy, then CG, then pelvis. What we've done is we've deleted all the faces of the horse except for one. And then we've also just gone to that face. Let's go to that face, and we've moved it around to a position that's actually sitting within the model. So it's completely concealed. The horse's body completely conceals that. And in that way, we've managed to maintain the hierarchy with a mesh, CG, and then pelvis, without having to include the entire horse model with all its high try count. And that's just another workaround for anyone that's struggling to work with accessories, embedding them or not embedding them, getting them to sync correctly in Unity, and then also maintaining the hierarchy. I really hope that helps. All right, take care. Bye.